All right, this has been bugging me for a while. I want to talk about why people give terrible advice. A lot of advice that you might hear might be something like do your best, keep an open mind, be nice to others, and you might realize that a lot of these pieces of advice are basically objective personality function. And when people give you advice, it's not necessarily focused on what your needs are, but what they think your needs are. And what they think you need is usually their saviors. And that makes sense. Of course, they recommend what works for them. Their saviors make them happy, so it should make you happy too. Sometimes you can guess what type of personality someone is based off of the advice that they give you. So if somebody says be respectful, be diligent, remember to value others, that looks like this personality. If someone with this personality is giving you advice, it's probably going to be like plan your goals, be true to yourself, focus on what's important. Someone with this personality is probably going to tell you to go experience the world, learn from others, be active. If you went through a breakup and these people all came to comfort you and give you advice, they'd probably say things like, you were too good for him. It's never going to work. There's always more fish in the sea. And that's a reflection of who they are and what their personality type is. None of this is about you. It's about them. The advice that they give reflects the values of the person giving the advice. So let's look at some examples. Here's Oprah Winfrey.
The three things that I want to leave with you. First and foremost, knowing who you are. Who am I? And what do I want? Many times when I go out of the country, I am baffled by that question. To explain what is your occupation, I've stood there for 10 minutes. Well, am I a talk show host? Well, I'm more than a talk show host. Am I a businesswoman? I'm a businesswoman. I'm more than a businesswoman. Am I an entrepreneur? I'm more than an entrepreneur. So I just leave it blank or self-employed. So I'm not asking for the roles that you play as daughters. I'm asking the bigger question of who am I? My answer is I am God's child. I am that which is born of all that is. I am, as Pierre de Chardin said, a spiritual being having a human experience. That's who I am. And what do I want? I want to fulfill the highest, truest expression of myself as a human being. You must have some kind of vision for your life. Even if you don't know the plan, you have to have a direction in which you choose to go. I never was the kind of woman who liked to get in a car and just go for a ride. I want to know, where are we going? You want to be in the driver's seat of your own life, because if you're not, life will drive you. Number two, you must find a way to serve. We think being known brings us value. Service and the significance that you bring to your service is that which is lasting. Using television as a service changed my career exponentially. That's number two. Number three, always do the right thing. People notice. Think of how you notice. You go to Taco Bell, somebody gives you an extra napkin and some sauce. You notice. You want to go back to that person. When people say, you're a brand, I would say, no, I'm just Oprah. What I recognize now is that my choice to do the right thing is what has created the brand. And I remember an interview with a woman who turns out she was a Sunday school teacher by day and a sex addict at night. And during the process of the interview, I said, why are you doing this? And she said, oh, I want to help people. I want to tell my story and I want to help people. I said, do you have children? She says, yes, I have a 10-year-old son. I knew right then this is never going to see the light of day, because her son will never get over it. And it's not worth a rating point to me to know that there's a 10-year-old boy who's destroyed because his mother went on the Oprah Winfrey show. You always know it's the right thing when in the end, there is peace.
So Oprah has a couple pieces of advice. The first piece of advice she gives is about identity, which is really cool and important for someone who is an extroverted feeler like she is. Finding her identity is really hard for her. It's kind of a bit of a do as I say, not as I do, though, because when she talks about her identity, it's still in terms of external factors like being a child of God. She talks about being committed to service, which is not surprising. She talks about having a plan, which is not surprising. And she also talks about doing the right thing as viewed from an extroverted feeling perspective. So she pulls the show because she doesn't want the kid to be embarrassed, which is something that someone who is very sensitive to tribe judgment would imagine as being a big priority for others, whether or not it actually is. It's possible that getting that message out to other people would do more help for other people in that woman's situation than trying to cover it up. What if that identity doesn't work with others? What if your morals don't actually match what other people's morals or values are? How do you become more effective? How do you understand what is actually right as opposed to what appears to be right on a superficial level? So here's Michelle Obama giving advice.
You have to practice who you want to be. You have to put some energy into it. So if you want to be an honest person, you have to be an honest person every day. If you're going to be a hard work doesn't just appear. You have to practice hard work. Good things don't come easy. Some of the best times in my life when I've grown, it's when I've done something hard, when I've overcome a fear. So I push my girls, but more importantly, I love them a lot. And that's what I feel for all of you. So there were periods of doubt, for sure. Doubts don't go away. You just learn how to deal with them. You start knowing yourself and you become more confident. Everybody falls every now and then. And what I realize is that we have long lives if we're healthy and we do what we're supposed to do. So think about life as a long trajectory. But the stumbles, the lessons learned, that's part of life that makes you grow. But I came to know that. I didn't know that when I was your age. First of all, is knowing who you are and being confident in yourself, pushing beyond other people's labels of you. Don't even know each other, and we already determined from one glance, meeting, one line, one word, one phrase, this is who you are. So you have to know who you are before that. And if you're have good character and good intentions, that ultimately shines through.
So for Michelle Obama, your identity is a lot of what you do. It's about perseverance. You need to do lots of stuff and you need to work really hard and you need to care about others. And that's really what success is for her. But when she's talking about that identity, she keeps defining herself in terms of what she's doing rather than who she is. If you're her kids, that might be a difficult environment to grow up in because everything about yourself is viewed through the lens of what have I done, not necessarily who I am. On the flip side, you might have someone like Eminem.
Anybody can do anything they set their mind to. If you really want to do it, it depends on how bad you want it, and I wanted to do it. At this stage of my life, I don't feel like there's too much that I can't do. I don't mean to sound cocky or nothing, but if I really want to do it, I don't give up. I was reserved and I was shy and I was scared to had it in me, but wasn't quite sure how to bring it out yet. I don't know, in a positive way, I guess, and show people. I wanted people to hear me so bad, and I wanted to do my shit, but them jitters and them scared. I'm not scared. That whole struggle and everything, especially early on for me.
I am white, and this is predominantly black music. People telling me you don't belong, you're not gonna succeed because you're this color, then you wanna show those people that you can and you will. Yeah, this kid over here, he may have more chicks, better clothes or whatever, but he can't do this like me. You know what I mean? He can't write what I'm writing right now. And it started to feel like, maybe Marshall's getting a little respect.
So in comparison to Michelle Obama or Oprah, Eminem is talking about overcoming tribe judgment in order to accomplish things that are meaningful to him and have your accomplishments speak for themselves and then get respect on the back end rather than doing everything with the same focus on how people respond to it. Of course, what that is missing is the way that other people connect with it. How do other people respond to what you're doing? Is that something that they care about or leaves room for them? If you're really confident in what you are doing and just keep doing that, what if you do it wrong? How do you learn to become better? This doesn't leave a lot of opportunity for how you learn what is out there, keeping in balance what you're doing with maybe what you should be doing or what you could be doing, or what the truth is. From that angle, we have someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
What's the impact you want to have on the world?
My impact would be people learn from me in a way that they are empowered by what I taught them. So that when they think of what they learned from me, they no longer think of me. They think of their own base of understanding of how this world works. And so that I become irrelevant. Because if people say, this is true because Tyson said so, then I failed. That's not how you teach someone. That's teaching them by authority. I want to teach you how to think about the world, and then you say, I have a new way to understand the world, and you just run off. You don't even look back. On my tombstone, I want the epitaph, be ashamed to die until you have scored some victory for humanity. And a victory for humanity is not a victory for yourself. It's just humanity's better off. Any of us, I think, should want the world to be a little better off for you having lived in it. That doesn't mean people praising you. What do you have to give with no expectation of return? No one ever told me that I had to search for meaning in life. Many people look for meaning in life as though it's going to be under a rock or behind a tree. And I'm thinking to myself, you have more power than that. You have the power to create meaning in your life. I create the meaning. And meaning to me is, do I know more about the world today than I did yesterday? That enhances meaning for me. By whatever powers I have available to me, have I lessened the suffering of others? And I don't mean, have I devoted the whole day to doing that? Then I would be ignoring myself. But if there's some small gesture that I can do that can completely add value to someone's life, I'm gonna do it. Because the leveraging of 10 minutes of my life into the happiness or enlightenment or the reduced suffering of someone else, I'd be irresponsible if I did not.
So Neil deGrasse Tyson is coming at this from an angle of how do I learn and how do I teach other people how to teach themselves, how to gather new information and a broader understanding so that everyone can form their own understanding of who they are and who they want to be. And then with that understanding, care about other people when you can. What that isn't necessarily addressing is how do I implement my knowledge? How do I know what direction to move in? Like that's how you bring in information, but how do I actually use those intuitions and go in a meaningful direction? For that type of perspective, we have someone like Robert Downy Jr.
This concept of things just sort of falling into place. I'm a big believer in that too.
Yeah.
What is that though? Is that you getting out of your own way? Like what is that?
Isn't that 70% of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's 70% maintenance of what can I do to do my part to stay out of the way. And then the other part, I always think of it as like this little super thin, invisible thread. But you can feel the tug and you have to be really gentle and you have to pause when agitated and you have to go for it when you're like, there's four walls in here, which one has the map behind it? It's that one. And you knock down the wall and it's there, you know.
So Robert Downy Jr. is much more focused on not just looking for those opportunities, but also listening to yourself, finding that meaning within yourself, and using that to move you to action. But it's also missing critical components like, what if your instincts are wrong? Or how do I take responsibility for others if what I want hurts them? Or what if I have a hard time getting motivated or my motivations don't really have as big an impact on the outside world as I would like? In which case, that circles you kind of back to, Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama. So all of these people have good pieces of advice, but they're focused in different directions. And all of this advice is generally focusing on these people at their best. Whereas some of the best type advice you can get is from people who have actually faced their demons and looked at the really hard parts of themselves. Michelle and Oprah both talked about finding your identity, but they really didn't demonstrate that very well. It was always focused on who they were in terms of just their external impact, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about how he wanted to do good for others, but there wasn't a clear path forward, and he had a hard time finding an internal identity that would actually drive you forward with that knowledge, the type of thing that Robert Downey Jr. had.
What's your advice you give these days?
You really have to think in your work, are you doing it in a steady state way? What part of the job do you enjoy? What parts don't you enjoy? Are you getting yourself into a position that, it's mostly the good stuff? The political side is important, but if I had to do that over half the time and I didn't have the piece connected up with innovation, I don't think I'd get re-energized to do the job overall. So thinking explicitly about your needs, what renews you, telling your coworkers things they do that are draining your energy. I'm glad that people are open-minded to those conversations, even telling me, did I make their job particularly fulfilling, or, do they feel like it's pushing them harder than they want to? They might face burnout issues.
Yeah, you like getting that kind of feedback?
Yeah, I'm so much more mellow now than I was, 20 years ago. I mean, 20 years ago when I'm CEO of Microsoft and it seems like there's not a minute to waste, I don't think the end of the meeting, if somebody had said to me, hey, that was a stressful meeting, and I would have said, okay, let's just sit around and talk about that. Right. That's really important to me. As I've gotten older and stepped back, I've seen if you push too hard, that's often counterproductive.
So that was really cool. Obviously, he's going to be asking questions like, what is the long-term impact of what I'm doing, and is this going to be sustainable? But he also recognized that as he got older, he developed more of an appreciation for paying attention to other people's needs. That was part of that demon growth function for him, which takes years to develop. It's more balanced. Yeah, he's focusing a lot on like energy and preservation with regards to things, but he learned something. He learned to be nice to other people. That's something that other savior TIs might need to learn from. So most advice comes with an implicit priority behind it. Most of those priorities have a personality function at their core. And so what I'd like you to do is when you're given advice or giving advice, try to recognize the function that is being used, and that will immediately tell you what it's ignoring. So someone might tell you to, if at first you don't succeed, try again. That's very SI. The corollary to that is insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And each one sits in the cognitive blindness of the other. Here's another example. Treat others how you want to be treated. That's a very FE statement. However, the flip side of that is don't assume that you know what's best for others. This is one that really messed me up, the serenity prayer. God, give me the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, the courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. This is a very TE statement, where it's telling you to focus on what you can do and ignore everything that you can't. This is ignoring your ability to articulate personal meaning that doesn't necessarily fit into something that can be done or accomplished. If you just focus on things that exist in a clear, doable space, you won't pay enough attention to the subtler things that have a big impact on you, and you may not realize it. So in summary, advice is about priorities, and most advice is good advice in the right situation. Everyone has different experiences from priorities, and those differences might be really useful to you. So my advice is to take advice from people with the best priorities. Couple wrap-up questions. Do people who have your demon functions as saviors give the best advice? How hard is it to understand the priorities of different personality types? And does knowing someone's type help you give better advice to them? Thanks, and good luck out there.